The story begins with a high school senior named Dambe who is a complete academic nerd. Her worst subject is math, and she often falls asleep in class. One day, the teacher calls her to solve problems on the board, but as usual, she fails to understand anything. The teacher becomes angry and scolds her in front of everyone. After all, there's a college entrance exam tomorrow. Although Dambe doesn't like studying, she loves music. She can tell which singer is singing just by listening to a few seconds of music. Her mother tells her that if she used this talent to solve math problems, she would be a genius by now. With that, her mother switches the TV to her favorite historical drama channel, which further irritates Dambe. Fed up with her mother's constant nagging, she goes out to eat with her best friend. But surprisingly, her friend is equally stressed. She fears that if she fails tomorrow's exam, everything will be over. Dambe can't understand how a single exam can determine a person's entire life. Yet, deep down she wishes she could just disappear. The next morning, Dambe wakes up late and rushes out of the house. Her mother tries to stuff breakfast into her bag, but it's already packed with snacks. Dambe quickly explains that this is her secret stress relief method. Her mother somehow manages to stuff breakfast into her bag and repeatedly tells her, "Okay, you'll do it. Just try your best." But in truth, this only increases Dambe's stress. She revises every minute along the way and finally reaches the test center. But the trouble doesn't end there. She forgets her umbrella on the bus and now has to run in the rain. As she approaches the school gate, she's overcome with intense anxiety. Only one thing is on her mind. Her fear of failing becomes so intense that she runs and hides in a nearby park. A little while later, her friend texts her asking why she didn't make it to the exam. Dambe doesn't reply. She simply prays silently, "Please just make me disappear this time." Suddenly, a deep drum-like sound comes from a distance. She walks toward the sound and, reaching a small pit, cautiously steps into it only to realize it doesn't even reach the bottom. The next moment, she witnesses a shocking sight. Some people in ancient clothes are performing a grand ritual hasu. They say it hasn't rained here for the past 3 years and the entire country is on the verge of ruin. Everyone thinks the rain prayer has failed again. But suddenly, dark clouds gather. The high priest exclaims, "Heaven has heard us, ayaya. Now Joseon will finally receive rain." Meanwhile, Dambe jumps into the pit without thinking. But instead of dying, she emerges from a large water pot. It's as if she's landed in another world. She looks around nervously, asking if they're filming a historical drama. The king, startled by her strange behavior, exclaims, "Is she human or a witch?" Terrified, she replies, "I'm just a high school student." But the king, unable to hear her, mistakes her for a murderer. He immediately orders the guards to draw their swords, and they surround her. One lightly cuts her hand. Then she realizes, this isn't a dream, I've actually traveled through time. Just then, a priest comes running and shouts, "Wait! This is the angel sent by heaven to end the drought." Hearing this, Dambe remembers the series she watched last night. She immediately raises her hands and shouts, "Let it rain!" Everyone kneels down and starts repeating her words. But when they look up, Dambe quietly runs away and hides in the dressing room. She quickly dresses herself like a minister, but accidentally arrives at the morning's meeting. The king declares that he will abandon superstition and save the country with science and math. A minister immediately stands up. He says that all this is an insult to God and will destroy the country. He says that the drought will only end when the king and queen consummate their relationship. In reality, the minister is the queen's father and secretly desires to seize power. With everyone's attention diverted, Dambe quietly goes outside to look for her phone, but is caught. While waiting for the king to return, she thinks that perhaps if it rains, she will be able to return to her world. But the king says that it hasn't rained here for 3 years. Hearing this, she is stunned. A sword is placed on her neck. Shortly after, the king, noticing her strange clothes, declares that she must be a spy for an enemy country and orders her death. Terrified, Dambe cries out, "I'm just a student from the future. I came here by mistake." She tries to prove her point by recounting past events, but no one believes her. Finally, she accidentally blurts out, "I'm a math expert." The king is intrigued and tests her with a Pythagoras problem, giving her 2 days to solve it. Initially, Dambe, unable to read old handwriting, is utterly perplexed. But once she realizes it's Pythagoras' theorem, she solves it in 5 seconds. The king is stunned, as 6 of his top geniuses couldn't do it. He promises to let Danby go and even give her a brick of gold for the night if she teaches him math. Danby is stunned. Until 2 hours ago, she was the weakest in the class, and now she's the brightest in Joseon. Knowledge truly transforms fate. From that day on, Danby, disguised as the king's personal servant, begins teaching him math. She's surprised that the king doesn't even know numbers like 1, 2, 3, so she starts with the most basic addition, subtraction, and then multiplication. The king continues to study math, even while walking in the garden and in between meetings. But Danby's life isn't easy. She's always sleepy. She has to wake up early to teach, and she doesn't even get a proper meal. A few days later, they have a big math practice competition. The music is loud, and the atmosphere is tense. The king gives a wrong answer, and Danby immediately slaps him on the forehead. The servants rush in, ready to beat him Hamadana, but the king stops them. Now his competitive spirit is fully awakened. In the next round, he catches Danby's mistake and jokingly says he'll cut off his hand. Just then the queen enters. The two quickly hide all the math papers and pretend they're practicing music. At lunch, the king notices that Danby is very hungry, so he invites her to eat with him. But the palace food tastes absolutely bland to her. So she takes the king to the kitchen and makes spicy rice cakes from the ingredients in her bag. Initially, the king underestimates this common food, but after just one bite, his eyes widen in surprise. Danby fears he won't be able to tolerate the spice, so she offers him water. However, the king stubbornly insists it's not spicy, just hot. But the next day, his stomach gets a bad upset, and he thinks Danby has cast a spell on him. Danby lovingly explains that it's not magic, it's just indigestion. Seeing his confused expression, she begins to explain what intestines are, what the stomach does, and how the heart works. She tells the king to place his hand on his chest and feel his heart beat. But the king shakes his head and says he can't feel anything. Smiling, Danby says, when you fall in love, you feel your heart beat. The king is delighted with her knowledge and praises her for being more useful than he imagined. He then takes Danby to the hospital and instructs her to explain to the doctors the insides of the body and how it functions. Furthermore, she also learns about agriculture from her. With Danby's help, both medicine and agriculture in Joseon gradually improve. The king is overjoyed and rewards everyone with a precious orange. He readily picks one up and gives it to Danby. But to his astonishment, Danby eats it right there. Eat there. The king angrily scolds her for not appreciating his gift. Such a precious fruit should last at least 3 days. Danby laughs and replies, "It's just an orange. Why are you so serious?" As punishment, the king takes her to the field and makes her repeatedly pick up a ball. Danby mutters, "What's this soccer at night?" The king angrily says, "You didn't let me take even one bite of that precious orange." Danby teases him, saying how stingy he is. Then she sticks out her tongue and teases him, and they share a laugh. For the first time, the king truly feels light and happy. That night, the king offers to drive him home. He then goes to his room and gets dressed. Meanwhile, Danby draws her happy face on the orange. At that very moment, the king's heart starts pounding. He remembers Danby's words and misunderstands that he might have fallen in love with her. So, instead of meeting her, he sends a singer to escort Danby home. The next day, to win the king's love, the queen asks her maid to secretly mix the magic love powder into the food. But the king regrets making Danby wait the previous night and gives her all his food. Yet Danby's mood remains sour. In fact, the king had been watching her from afar the previous night and couldn't figure out what to do with his feelings. That very night, thinking everything was set, the queen came to the king's room and took off her clothes. But the king refused and instead helped her put them back on. Suddenly, Danby, in a drunken state, emerged and fell straight into the king's arms. Seeing this, the queen assumed the king wasn't interested in women and angrily left. Shortly after, the powder began to take effect and Danby openly confessed her feelings to the king. The king, unable to conceal his feelings, leaned in to kiss her. But at the last moment he stopped and asked, "Have I gone mad?" When Danby woke up, she was shocked to find herself in the king's arms. The king didn't punish her, but instead offered to escort her home again. On the way, he said, if you want, I'll give you a high position and a royal horse. But Dunbei refuses, saying, as soon as it rains, I'll go back to my world. The king replies, because of you, I can breathe easily today. From now on, don't mistake me for a king. We're both equal friends. Overjoyed, Dunbei gives the king an orange with a happy face. But the next day, trouble strikes. The minister accuses Dunbei of insulting the queen and prepares to punish him severely. The king intervenes, saving him, explaining that the young man possesses invaluable knowledge. Yeah. Seeing the situation worsen, the minister makes a promise. If Danbei builds a machine within 2 weeks that can tell time without the sun, he'll be pardoned. After the meeting, even the king's most trusted minister tells him to let Dunbei go, saying it's impossible. Dunbei hears this and is heartbroken. To survive, she asks the king's court musician for help in building a water clock and spends day and night studying and doing calculations. The king misses her immensely. He stares at the smiley orange she gave him and, unable to resist, goes to meet her. A flashback shows the king telling his minister, I'm sure Dunbei can do it. A little while later, Dunbei wakes up and sees a smiley face on her book. She realizes it was the king who came to encourage her. She gathers courage and continues her research. Finally, she completes all the calculations. But suddenly, heavy rain begins to fall. Dunbei gently touches the water puddle in front of the door and checks, and indeed, it leads back to the modern world. But instead of happiness, she can't bear to go. Meanwhile, the king remembers her words. Forsaking all royal decorum, he runs through the rain to her. But there she is, standing in front of the water clock, crying. He knows the machine he invented didn't work. The king takes her hand, places it on his heart, and says, I tried so hard to forget you, but I failed, Ogi. Then he pulls her into his arms, thankful she hasn't left yet. After calming down a bit, the king says they should take the boat and run away. But Danbei refuses. She's always run away from things, but this time she wants to finish everything. Just then, Singer arrives and leads her to a quiet forest. Suddenly he puts his sword to her neck. He's actually the minister's spy, sent to kill someone like Danbei. But he can't kill her. He becomes convinced that Danbei truly comes from the future. He also knew she was a girl, but like a good man, he never revealed the secret. Danbei explains that she didn't intend to deceive him. This was simply for the boy, and he had no other choice. Meanwhile, the minister insists the king erase everything Danbei taught because she poses a threat to his power. But the king refuses and leaves the palace to find Danbei. The queen senses something's wrong. She goes to the king's room and sees the orange with a smiling face. She remembers the moments between the king and the giantess and suddenly realizes that Danbei is a girl. In the forest, assassins arrive to kill Danbei. Singer tells him to run first, and she hands him a small utility knife. Thanks to that small weapon, he narrowly escapes. Meanwhile, Danbei is trying to control the horse. The horse panics, but she remembers the Gangnam-style horse dance. Using that rhythm, she manages to control it. At a turn in the road, she doesn't know where to go. Then she remembers the king's words. In Joseon, the sun tells the time. She opens her phone. Using the compass and the sun's direction, she finally heads towards the sea. Meanwhile, the queen learns that Singer has run away with Danbei. She sets out on foot to find him. To walk faster, she throws away her heavy headgear. The long journey even causes her feet to bleed. Only when the queen sees the singer safe and sound does the queen breathe a sigh of relief. In reality, they were childhood friends, and the queen married the king only because her father forced her to. Now, for the first time, she faces her true heart. Danbei is watching a beautiful sunset on the beach when the king arrives on horseback. He kisses her passionately and holds her tightly in his arms. That night, Danbei recounts how she came from the future. As proof, she shows the star map on her phone. But the battery quickly runs out. They both look at the sky. Danbei sadly says there aren't so many stars in the sky in the future. The king comforts her. If you stop and look carefully, you'll see all the stars. They've always been here, never gone. After a while, the king writes love on her hand and Danbei gives her a chocolate with love written on it. Iskimba. The king says he wants to create a new, simple language system that even ordinary people can learn, not just the rich. Suddenly, Danby remembers something. She takes a note from her pocket and sees the king's face printed on it. Overjoyed, she exclaims, "You will definitely do it." Then she hesitates, wondering if she should ask for an autograph. The king eats a piece of chocolate and praises its taste. Danby wants to offer him more snacks, but she remembers that her mother packed them all, and her eyes fill with tears. The king immediately asks what happened. She quietly explains that they were her childhood favorites. The next day, while washing her face in the river, Danby notices that the water is covered in algae, blocking its flow. She immediately realizes that this is what caused her water clock to malfunction. She rushes back to the palace, improves the design, and finally the clock works properly. The king immediately calls a meeting and announces that Danby will be pardoned and given a high position. But the ministers are furious, demanding that he be expelled from the country or killed. The king remains unmoved and continues to secretly learn math and geography from Danby. That same day, Danby enters the royal kitchen and sees Rani eating in a corner. Her father doesn't allow her to eat much because he fears that fat will reduce her value. Danby takes pity and prepares instant noodles for her. Rani takes the first bite and is instantly captivated by the spicy, delicious taste. Gradually, she opens up to Danby and shows her design sketch. She admits she wants to fill it with star-like colors, but she's unsure how. Then Danby comes up with a brilliant idea. She slightly alters the drawing and holds it up to the night sky. In an instant, a sparkling star-studded dress emerges. The queen is delighted with the unique design. She even asks Queen Dagar to reward Danby. Meanwhile, Danby takes her first bath in years and then puts on her beautiful clothes. She's completely confused. She doesn't understand what's happening. Then a maid informs her that she must stay with the king tonight. It turns out Queen Dagar has officially made her a concubine. Panicked, Danby runs away and hides in a side hall. But the king soon finds her. He takes her hand and brings her to his room. Danby tries to free herself, crying, "You said we were just friends, and I'm only 19. The king jokingly says, "If you're 19, you should already have 3 children. Then he pulls her into his arms and whispers, "I knew you were a girl from the beginning." In fact, the day he brought her home, he overheard a boy calling her Nuna. He didn't tell her earlier because he wanted to be closer to her. Danby still stays away, so the king gently explains, "Don't be afraid. I won't do anything to you. My mother is stubborn. That's why hiding here is the safest place for you." As he leaves, the king can't help but compliment her. "You look really beautiful today." Both of them can't sleep that night. In the darkness, the king whispers, "Don't go next time it rains." He admits that he once wanted to rule his kingdom with Danby's help and fulfill his dreams. But now he wants none of that. All he wants is for Dan to be with him. Danby is devastated. She doesn't know what to do. The next day, Singer asks her, "Do you really want to go back?" She admits she's afraid she might be taking herself in the wrong direction. But she also misses her mother and her friend deeply. She doesn't even know what her heart desires. She sits in a corner, completely lost. A little while later, the queen comes and tells her that someone has come to visit her. It's none other than Queen Dagar herself. Danby starts crying as soon as she sees her because Queen Dagar looks exactly like her real mother. Queen Dagar holds her hand and caresses her lovingly. That night, Danby goes to see the king's new machine, which she helped build. It can record dates and months with perfect accuracy. Then the king takes her to his study and shows her a new invention, a new 28-word writing system that makes reading and writing easier. He says that no matter who they are, no matter where they come from, everyone can learn it. Danby is amazed. She sees the future unfolding with her own eyes. The king takes out a hairpin, a symbol of their marriage, and places it in her hair. He tells her to always stay with him and never leave. Danby's eyes fill with tears. She says, "I want to go back. My mother is waiting for me." The king gently says, "So meet her and come back, or the 3 of us can stay here together." Danby nods. She takes out the hairpin and gives it back to the king. The king angry and sad, says, "Do whatever your heart desires." He leaves, leaving Danbei standing alone. Suddenly, an assassin attacks her. He strikes her on the head and stabs her in the stomach, and the entire study collapses in flames. She lies unconscious, clutching a hairpin tightly in her hand. When the queen discovers her father's plot, she defies everyone and rushes to warn the king. The king, fearing for his own life, jumps into the fire. Only then does he realize that keeping Danbei with him would endanger his own life. The next day, the king is furious with Singer for missing the bomb last night. He grabs the minister's hand and shouts, "No one told you how to clean up after a bomb." Then he looks at Danbei. That was the voice. She nods. It turns out the book in her bag saved her life, and she clearly heard the assassin's voice. The king can't believe his most trusted minister could do such a thing. The minister falls to his knees and declares that if the new language spreads, the youth will speak freely, discipline will collapse, and the world will be turned upside down. But the king refuses to listen. He declares that he will definitely give this literacy program to the people, and realizing their mistake, all the ministers fall to their knees and beg the king to spare their lives. Danbei then gives the king a history book and declares that his dream will surely come true. The king is astonished. Everything should have been burned, but one copy remained. Only then does he truly believe that Danbei has come from the future. Danbei thanks the king on behalf of the people. But the king sighs deeply and says, "I don't think this will fulfill my dream." Then, with love, he adds, "You are my dream, but I cannot see you here sad." Just then, the sky darkens and rain begins. They both know it's time to say goodbye. Danbei returns to her people and bids them all farewell. The king himself then escorts her to the final end, until they reach the sea. There they create their last beautiful memory. The king pulls her into his arms and kisses her lovingly. Finally, he releases her, silently promising that no matter how much time passes, he will find her again. A few moments later, Danbei emerges from a small body of water in the park. Returning to her own world, she realizes that only seconds have passed. She runs to the exam hall where the teacher is still waiting. The college entrance exam has just begun. The first question of the history test was, who helped King Sejong in his discoveries? The answer was the name the king had given her, Jang Yongsil. She realizes that what she saw wasn't a dream, it was truly part of history. Upon reaching home, Danbei hugs her mother tightly. This journey has taught her how to value the people around her and her own life. Yet, every time she sees a small body of water, she remembers that king, Utalinma. One day, as she gets off the bus, it suddenly begins to rain heavily, and then an umbrella falls over her head. The man holding the umbrella looks exactly like Raja. He smiles and says, "We've met before, a long time ago." It turns out that he fell in love with Danbei at first sight on the day of the exam, and he was the one who picked up the umbrella she accidentally left behind. This is where their story begins, again, this time in a different world.